Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the last couple of videos have been a little bit too lengthy, to be honest, but anyways, let's try to make this one a little bit shorter if I can. It's just kind of a complicated concept, and hopefully I'm being very clear, by the way, with my work. But anyways, sometimes they'll give you quadratics in vertex form, okay? Vertex form. Here's an example right here. Notice right here, guys, I already have it x plus 3 squared and then a minus 1 at the end. Well, what you're going to learn, guys, is you're given the vertex. You see, right there, if you ask yourself what plus 3 makes it 0, isn't that negative 3, correct? And the minus 1 at the end says, oh, by the way, if you take negative 3 minus 1, this is called your vertex. Okay? And that's the name of the vertex. Now, we'll have to discuss it more in class, but to save time, let's get right to the graphing. And if it's okay, guys, I'm going to erase that. I want to make sure I have enough room here. And let's get started. What's the first thing I taught you to always do? Yeah, we make a table, right? We make a table. And we got to pick the right numbers. Now, again, like intercept form, ask yourself, what plus 3 makes that 0? Hopefully you agree that's negative 3. You see, that's my vertex. Negative 3 is my vertex. Okay? And like I've done before, I'll just count up and down. So negative 4, negative 5, negative 2, negative 1. And I have 5 points. That should be enough to get a good graph. And now I just need to complete my table. So let's start with negative 5. So if I do negative 5 plus 3 squared minus 1, I get negative 2 squared minus 1. Negative 5 plus 3 is negative 2. And that's 4 minus 1, right? Which is 3. And because of symmetry, I know negative 1 is 3. Okay? Let's go to negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 squared minus 1. Well, that's just negative 1 squared minus 1, which is 1 minus 1, which is 0. And that means negative 2 must be 0. Symmetry. And notice we only have 1 point left, guys. That's our vertex. So we're just going to take negative 3 plus 3 squared minus 1. Well, that's 0 squared minus 1. We kind of knew that because we made it 0, right? And 0 minus 1 is negative 1. Guess what? We can graph this now. Negative 5 is 3. Negative 4 is 0. Negative 3 is negative 1. Negative 2 is 0. Negative 1 is 3. And so, guys, there is our graph. What do you guys think? Vertex form may actually be the easiest one once we practice it. Okay? So, pause the video if you need to. We're going to do at least 1 or 2 more, okay? Alright. Look at this next example right here. What's the first step again, guys? Make the table. Always make the table first. Second thing you always do is pick the right points, right? How do we find the right points this time? Well, ask yourself, what minus 1 makes that in there 0? It's 1, right? So 1 is my vertex. Again, I'm just going to go 0, negative 1, 2, 3. I have my 5 points. Now I'm ready to graph. Let's start with negative 1. Negative 2, parentheses, negative 1, minus 1 squared, minus 1. Negative 2 times negative 2 squared minus 1. Notice parentheses first, guys. Now I'm going to do the power next. Negative 2 times 4 minus 1. Negative 8 minus 1 is negative 9. That means 3 is negative 9. Again, guys, notice how I use PEMDAS. Parentheses, power, multiply, then finally subtract. All right, let's plug in 0. Negative 2 times 0 minus 1. Squared minus 1. Negative 2, parentheses first, right? Negative 1. Power next. Negative 2 times 1 minus 1. Negative 2, multiply next. Minus 1 is negative 3. That means 2 is also negative 3, correct? And finally, all we have left is a vertex. Okay, only thing we have left is vertex. Hopefully you got that jotted down. If not, you have to rewind the video. But anyways, I got to plug in the 1. Negative 2 times 1 minus 1 squared minus 1. Again, we agree that makes us 0. So we basically have negative 2 times 0 squared, which is basically 0 minus 1, negative 1. And we're ready to graph again. Negative 1 is negative 9, which is barely off the screen right there, right? 0 is negative 3, about right there. 1 is negative 1, that's my vertex. 2 is negative 3. And finally, 3 is negative 9, off my screen right there again, one grid. There again, guys, is our parabola, our quadratic. Pause the video before we do one more problem. Okay, so again, what's the first thing we're going to do, guys? Make the table, Mr. Ormsby. That's right. Next thing we got to do is pick the right numbers, Mr. Ormsby. That's right. So what minus 4 gives us 0? That's a 4, right? Notice I put it in the middle of the table. 4, again, is where my vertex is, right? Don't forget that. Again, I'm just counting in order like a number line. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's plug in the numbers. 2 minus 4 squared minus 3. That's negative 2 squared minus 3. That's 4 minus 3, which is 1. That means 6 is 1. Symmetry, right? Let's go ahead and do the 3. 2 minus 3 squared minus 3. 2 minus 3 is negative 1 squared minus 3. That's 1 minus 3. That's negative 2. That means 5 is negative 2. Symmetry. And finally, the vertex. 4. Whoa, I messed up on the last one, didn't I? Back up, back up. Instead of 2 minus 3, it should have been 2 minus 4 squared minus 3, right? That's negative 2 squared. That's therefore 4 minus 3, which is positive 1. Ooh, good thing I caught that. So that's positive 1 there, right? Wait a minute. How is that possible? Let's see. What did I do wrong there? Oh my gosh. I'm really messing up, aren't I? So instead of 2 minus 3, should have been 3 minus 4. So we actually had it correct, right? Let's see here. Negative 1 squared 1 minus 3 is negative 2. And that means 5 is also negative 2 because of symmetry. God help me if this is wrong. All right, so now we go on to number 4. 4 minus 4 squared minus 3. 0 squared minus 3 is simply negative 3. And so let's go to our graph, guys. 2 is positive 1. 3 is negative 2. 4 is negative 3. 5 is negative 2. 6 is 1. Here again is my graph. I apologize for my silly mistakes, guys. But you make mistakes, I make mistakes, right? The important thing, guys, is knowing when to correct them when you see them. But I'm pretty sure I have the graph done correctly. And hopefully this helped you. And I'll see you in class. Till next time, bye.